The Nashville Predators and New Jersey Devils have made a lot of additions early in free agency, while the Vegas Golden Knights have lost some key players. We have that and a whole lot more coming up on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the co-host of Locked On Predators, Ann Kimmel. And Ann, gotta say, you must be in recovery mode after this busy last 10 days in Nashville. As the dust starts to settle, how do you feel about all these moves that the Predators have made?
I will tell you, my initial feeling was when I yesterday clicked on the Nashville Predators page and saw a picture of Steven Stamkos listed with his stats under the heading Nashville Predators. And we are feeling pretty excited here in Nashville. It has been a wild ride with the free agency signings and the draft picks that they picked up. They just wrapped up development camp. It has been a busy 10 days, but I will tell you the excitement in Nashville over this Predators season coming up is electric.
Did you expect Barry Trotz to be that active? I mean, I know there was cap space available, but did you expect him to be that aggressive in free agency?
I think if you had told us that, hey, he's looking to land a couple of players, and if you would have thrown out Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, and Brady Shea, everybody in Nashville would have been very excited to sign one of them. But like you said, Barry Trotz had money to spend. And I think that the team last year proved some things to him that made him feel like, you know what, right now is a good time to invest. And if you can get players like these three players, go get them all. So while we expected he would be busy, and of course, everybody in Nashville had heard the rumors about potentially pursuing Steven Stamkos, I don't know that anyone really believed that Nashville would be able to get that deal done on top of and with Jonathan Marchessault and Brady Shea, and Scott Wedgwood came in too as a backup goaltender. So I don't know that anybody anticipated it being that action-packed with that big of a draw of players coming in.
As far as leadership is concerned, you've got to be excited about Stamkos's role on the team in that capacity.
Absolutely. Now, at the end of the season, Barry Trotz traded Ryan McDonagh back to Tampa Bay at McDonagh's request, just for off-ice reasons. And he was very committed to bringing in somebody who had the leadership that Ryan McDonagh had in the locker room. Well, you get Steven Stamkos, who has won those same 2 Stanley Cups that Ryan McDonagh had won, has been a captain in Tampa Bay. And it is so important right now where the Predators are with their franchise to bring in these, what Barry Trotz calls serial winners, these players who have made the deep playoff runs and been successful in the Stanley Cup, who have that leadership as they're bringing up some younger players too. They're really resetting the culture, and the players that they got this free agency are absolutely off ice what Barry Trotz wanted.
Where do you see these guys fitting into the lineup? Have you thought about line combinations yet? Have you had time?
It's definitely been something everybody's dreaming about. Now, where will they fit in will be very interesting. The Predators had a lot of success with the top line last year of Philip Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, and Gustav Nyquist. But will Andrew Brunette want to break that top line up to mingle in Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault? We haven't heard from Andrew Brunette yet. We did ask Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz, what are you thinking about the lineups? And he said, whoa, I am not going to get in the coach's business. I know better. So we're going to wait and see what Andrew Brunette draws up in training camp. But the opportunities, the options are endless, not just for these amazing players that they have veteran wise, but also for some of the younger players that may slot in with somebody like a Jonathan Marchessault or a Steven Stamkos.
How important was it to re-sign Juuse Saros?
It literally was the key to everything else that happened on that first day in free agency, because in our media availability with both Marchessault and Stamkos, we haven't yet had a chance to hear from Brady Shea, but they were very clear. They were looking for a team that was committed to winning. And if you don't have Juuse Saros in net with the Nashville Predators, you don't have a team that is serious a contender. So re-signing Juuse Saros, absolutely the most critical first step in the success that we saw last week.
And what is your biggest concern right now? You have all these high profile additions, a lot of excitement. What little voice, what's the little voice in the back of your mind saying that maybe has you a little bit concerned heading into this season?
I've tried to ride the wave of joy this past week, but I will say there's a couple of things. You look at Jonathan Marchessault coming off of a career season, 33 years old, which we know in hockey years is maybe heading towards the end of a career or inching that way. Well, he played with Jack Eichel. Do the Nashville Predators have somebody who is going to work as well with Jonathan Marchessault as somebody like Jack Eichel? The same with Steven Stamkos. He had some extraordinary line mates in Tampa Bay. Are we going to have the right fit here in Nashville that is going to help them continue their success? I think probably they're going to find some pieces, but it may not be a quick adjustment. They may have to try some different players to find that right fit. So I do think that Predators fans are going to have to be a little bit patient, and it's going to be hard to be patient the first time you see these guys in a gold jersey.
No question about that. How did you feel about the draft? I know prospect camp just, ended, and was there somebody who stood out there and someone who you're really looking forward to seeing them develop?
Definitely. They went to the draft with 9 picks, came home with 8 prospects. And I have to tell you, Igor Surin, who they took with the 22nd pick overall, absolutely won the city over. And a lot of the picks for Nashville were what I would kind of describe as identity picks. These are players that definitely have some sort of exceptional skill set in an area or two. But the thing that really stands out across the board with this draft class is that Barry Trotz went after players who had kind of that high drive, that motor always going, that loves to compete, always going after the puck. And that's sort of an identity piece that Trotz is working on with veterans and prospects as well. So I think across the board, you saw that in these 8 draft picks. But again, Igor Surin, they had their Future Stars game at the end of development camp this past weekend, scored the first goal, not afraid to celebrate, came 17 years old, came with, kind of broken English and was happy to do media, was engaged in, building relationships with other players and with the coaching staff. He did have to be told very specifically, you cannot check players in development camp until the Future Stars game. So it was really a great week. We got to see a lot from this draft class and previous draft classes, and a lot of improvements in some of those players as well.
Always a good thing. No doubt about that. As far as cap space is concerned, do they have much left? And are there any things left on the checklist between now and the start of training camp?
Yeah, all of that cap space that they had is down to they do not have that cap space. So Barry Trotz did say that it is likely that he still will make 1 or 2 moves to make some cap space to give the Predators a little bit of breathing room. did not indicate who that would be. I think a lot of Nashville Predators fans are keeping their eye on a couple players. Dante Fabro is a defenseman who is consistently brought up when you're talking about trade deadline and potential interest. Another one that I would hate to see go, but people have mentioned, is Cody Glass, who actually played with Jonathan Marchessault in Vegas. I would love to see him back in the lineup. He had a very tough season last season, but we are going to wait and see if Barry Trotz is going to make some moves to free up a little bit more space soon.
All right. And why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you and your co-host on social media?
You can find the podcast on your favorite audio podcasting platform. Of course, we are also on YouTube. You can follow us on social media at LO_Predators. We're constantly updating all of the craziness that is in Nashville right now. And you can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
And thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Thanks so much, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Obviously, you've got Major League Baseball. You want to bet on your favorite team. You want to bet on who the winning pitcher of a game is going to be, who's going to win the pennant. Lots of options there. Just head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Devils, Trey Matthews. And Trey, never a dull moment over the last few weeks for the New Jersey Devils. Let's start about what happened even before the draft. The Devils landing their goalie, Jacob Markstrom. What impact do you think that'll have on the franchise going forward?
Well, it's definitely going to be an interesting circumstance for the Devils because Jacob Markstrom is up there in age and he has this season and then next season remaining on his contract. How will the Devils go on from there? We don't really know. But for the time being, I think Tom Fitzgerald did a good job in getting a goalie because if we look at some of the other options that were available, Juuse Saros, he just signed a lengthy extension with the Nashville Predators. Connor Hellebuck, he re-signed with the Jets last summer. Apparently, he was having his name float around in trade discussions, and I think the Devils were linked to him at one point. Then you see that the Ottawa Senators had to sacrifice their first-round draft pick to the Boston Bruins to get Linus Ullmark. And the Devils, they sacrificed their first-round draft pick next year and also Kevin Ball for Markstrom. Now, here's the thing. I don't think it's a lose-lose either way for the Devils because they didn't have to sacrifice their 10th overall pick in the draft that happened just last week. And also is like if the Devils are a playoff team once again, they're not going to care about that first-round draft pick. But if they are absolutely awful yet again, then that first-round draft pick that they sacrifice is top 10 protected. So if the Devils do end up tanking, they'll get that draft pick right back, and that sort of falls into their favor as well. My thing is like Jacob Markstrom, was he the best goalie available compared to some of the other names I just listed? No, but he did lead the league in shutout a couple seasons ago. He was second in the Vezina Trophy race, finishing behind Igor Shesterkin a couple years ago. I think Jacob Markstrom is an upgrade over the previous tandem the Devils had, which was Jake Allen and Kaapo Kähkönen, or if you want to go a little bit further, Vitek Vanecek and Akira Schmid.
Who do you think will win the backup job behind Markstrom this year?
Jake Allen. That no ands, ifs, or buts about it. Jake Allen still has this season remaining on his contract. He was very good with the Devils, but the problem is like you don't really want to make him the go-to guy, especially if you want to be a playoff caliber team. Jake Allen, I think he'll be a solid backup, and Tom Fitzgerald has revealed that the intent is for Jacob Markstrom to be the starter.
makes a lot of sense right there. As far as the Devils are concerned, also very busy with free agency, bringing in Brett Pesce, Brendan Dillon to add to the blue line. How do these guys fit in, and what impact do you expect them to have on the Devils?
So let's go back a little bit. The Devils in last year's free agency lost Damon Severson, signed and trade with Columbus Blue Jackets, and also Ryan Graves, who signed a 6-year contract, I believe, with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And Damon Severson, while he was always known as an offensive-minded defenseman, during that historic season that the Devils had, he took a step back in terms of focusing more on defense and less on offense. And he was a very good bottom four defenseman. That's why he suited up in 81 of the 82 potential games. And his scoring numbers, they went down, but his defensive impact, and you can look at the advanced analytics, they were there. And for Ryan Graves, he was always tops in the NHL for plus minus or defensive point shares ratings. So when the Devils lost that, they lost experience, they lost defensive capabilities, and it just left a hole that the Devils unfortunately could not fill. And their blue line this past season was very inexperienced in Luke Hughes, Shimon Nemeth, and also Santeri Hatakka. Excuse me. And they just signed Seamus Casey to his entry-level contract. So my thing is, like, they need to get more experience, and they did that in Brett Pesce. Even though Pesce's not the most physical guy, defensive-minded defenseman that knows where to place himself, and he has a tendency to elevate his game come playoff time. Brendan Dillon, very physical guy. I'm excited for him. And let me tell you an interesting fact, Gil. So the Devils got not only Brendan Dillon added to their blue line, they also got Paul Cotter as a bottom six asset. This past season, Cotter had 233 hits. Dillon had 241. You want to know what the Devils' record is?
Go ahead.
225 by Blake Coleman during the 2018-2019 season. Physicality was a point of emphasis for the Devils, and they were able to do that. So I like Brendan Dillon. I do like Brett Pesce, and they sort of focus more on defense, and it balances it out a little bit more. And Jonathan Kovacevic from the Montreal Canadiens, I think he was also very underrated as well. He sort of replaces Kevin Ball in a sense. Now you got some more defensive-minded defensemen, but at the same time, you got your players like Dougie Hamilton, Luke Hughes, Shimon Nemeth, guys that are going to focus more on the offense, but on the defense, Brett Pesce, Brendan Dillon, and Jonas Siegenthaler.
Not bad at all. How about the additions at forward so far this offseason?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
How about the additions at forward so far this
offseason? Yeah. So Paul Cotter, like I just mentioned, I'll be honest, I think the Devils sacrificed just a little too much to get his services. They gave up Alexander Holtz and Akira Schmid on the second day of the draft. I feel like if you were to include Alexander Holtz and Akira Schmid in a different trade package, then maybe you could get a lot more. But I understand the direction that Fitzy was trying to go. He was trying to replace the productivity of Michael McLeod and Miles Wood. And unfortunately, no one's ever going to replace McLeod's face-off productivity. He was just one of a kind in that sort of category. But in terms of McLeod and Wood, they were both physical guys, blue-collar guys, and two players that could get their name into the score sheet every now and again, but they knew how to work the corners. They knew how to play aggressive. They weren't afraid to throw their bodies around. So you add Paul Cotter, you add Stefan Noesen, and offensively, Tomas Tatar, the Devils reunite with him, and he had a plus-minus rating of plus 41 a couple seasons ago with the Devils, and he and Nico Hischier absolutely dominated teams when they were on the same line together. They had an expected goal percentage of 64.2%, which I think is pretty good if you ask me. And will they recreate that magic? Only time will tell, but you replaced Alexander Holt's goal production with Tomas Tatar, and you replaced Wood and also McLeod's physicality and two-way ability with Stefan Noesen and Paul Cotter to an extent. But the one thing that Cotter needs to work on, he needs to work on being a little more consistent.
So what's left now for the Devils to do between now and training camp?
Fitzgerald revealed at his press conference that with how the cap is working right now, he's pretty much done, and the main focus is to re-sign Dawson Mercer. It's projected that he's going to get a bridge deal because, unfortunately, he had a career low in a lot of categories this past season, but he's still a very good asset, and Fitzgerald has said that Dawson Mercer is in the long-term plans. That's the mindset right now. In terms of trades, in terms of moves, free agency, I think the Devils are done. They're satisfied with what they got. They fixed a lot of needs, more bottom six depth, more defensive depth, and also a better goaltender. They did all that. Now the main focus shifts to getting Dawson Mercer back.
All right, Trey, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
You can find Locked On Devils wherever you get your podcast from, Apple, Spotify, wherever, also on YouTube. And you can follow me on social media at TreyMatt4 or the show's X-Page app at Locked On Devils. And I don't know when this episode is going to go live, but while you're at it, why don't you wish me a happy birthday? Just turned 25.
Happy birthday to you, Trey, and thanks so much.
Thank you, Gil.
It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the co-host of Locked On Vegas Golden Knights, Chris Gawlik. And Chris, it's been a busy couple of weeks in Vegas for the Golden Knights, hosting the draft, always exciting, but then a lot of players who have been on the team heading elsewhere. Your overall assessment of everything that's been going on roster-wise?
Two things right now that stick out. Number one, Jonathan Marchessault, so I'll try to keep it quick. The team couldn't come to terms with Marchessault, so the situation came down to term and the way the Golden Knights wanted to financially, not the amount he was being paid, but when he was paying it. The Golden Knights were, for lack of a better term, screwing around a little bit, if you will, and tried to backload his contract when he was going to receive the money. The AAV wouldn't change a whole lot, but when the physical money came in, it would have been near the end of the contract. So that, for lack of a better term, upset him a little bit, and the Golden Knights and Marchessault parted ways. The other big move is Logan Thompson. This was very unfortunate. Logan has had some issues in the organization, notably with him and goaltender coach Sean Burke. Two didn't see eye to eye a lot of the time. I guess we'll kind of leave it right there, which led to Logan Thompson requesting a trade. So here comes Ilya Samsonov to fill that void. And here we are.
You mentioned Samsonov. How do you feel he fills that
Great.
void? And
awesome. Excited.
Okay.
Couldn't be happier to have him.
And
we'll see. I mean, listen, Samsonov, there's a couple things here to talk about. Number one, 3 straight seasons of 40 or greater appearances. Aiden Hill has never had greater than 35 appearances in the regular season. So the Golden Knights do need that. Smaller deal made involving Akira Schmid from the New Jersey Devils and Alex Holtz. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But Schmid, obviously a goaltender, could be very helpful if there's injury issues or if Samsonov does not do well between the pipes. A lot of his advanced metrics, not very good, but the dude chews up innings, if you will, if we're going to use a baseball term.
Fair enough. How do you replace Marchessault and his production?
The Golden Knights didn't. There's been a lot of rumors about other players. You still hear Mitch Marner's name getting mentioned. I don't know. You hear Trevor Zegras getting mentioned, possibly. There could be a path to a deal with Zegras, especially involving Shea Theodore and maybe some draft compensation. We'll see if that comes to fruition. Right now, the path the Golden Knights have taken to replace Marchessault starts internally with Pavel Dorofeev and Brennan Brisson. Brisson, it'll be his rookie season. I think he's got 15 or 18 NHL games under his belt, a couple of goals, a few assists. Pavel Dorofeev, a little bit better, basically a point in every other game as far as his statistics go. Now enter Alexander Holtz. It's been a long day. Alexander Holtz, 16 goals, 12 assists last season with the New Jersey Devils. Limited playing time, 4th line role. See if the Golden Knights can extract a little more out of him. And then an interesting deal was made with Victor Olofsson. Only, I think, 5 goals last season, not a small handful of assists, but he's had 20 or greater goals 3 times throughout his career, a couple of those times with Jack Eichel. So there's some history there. Maybe the Golden Knights will get lucky and catch lightning in a bottle with some combination of Olofsson, Holtz, Brisson, and Dorofeev.
Obviously, the Golden Knights, since their inception, have been a win-now team. Do you see that philosophy changing at this point, or do you expect them to continue along that path?
The mindset is still win now, but this is a transition period for the Golden Knights because the Stanley Cup window is still there. You got Eichel, you got Stone, you got Pietrangelo, you got Noah Hannafin, you got Tomas Hertl. Aiden Hill is a Stanley Cup winning goalie. Zach Whitecloud is young. Shea Theodore is young. We can go on and on. Nicholas Waugh, Ivan Barbashev. A winning championship core is still there. Not Marchessault, unfortunately. I think the door closed a little bit with Marchessault's exit. So if the Golden Knights can tread water until January, not to make a Mark Stone joke, but I will. If the Golden Knights can tread water until January, February, you never know what happens with this organization and injuries. It's happened 3 years in a row. It needs to be acknowledged. Fair, foul, or otherwise, it has happened 3 years in a row with high-ranking players of this team going down, which clears up salary cap space. Kelly McCrimmon has never met a trade he doesn't like around the trade deadline as well, so we'll see what happens. If the team treads water until January and some salary cap space becomes available, or if some good, shiny new pieces come about on the trade market, McCrimmon's going to be a buyer. Now, I think the realistic plan is get through next season, see what happens with Holtz, Dorofeev, Brisson, Olofsson, see if these are any long-term pieces for this team, because the Golden Knights will have a lot of money after the 24-25 season to address free agents, bigger value free agents, and really make a run for the Cup in 25-26 and 26-27.
Makes sense. What has the fan reaction been to the last 10 days or so?
A lot of damage control by the Golden Knights right now. You see articles popping up in the media and stuff trying to put a positive spin on this. And then you got people like myself that aren't necessarily being as positive about it. And, you know, I think in the beginning it was 80%, the Golden Knights screwed this up. Jonathan Marchessault is gone, doom and gloom. Time to riot at City National, where the Golden Knights practice and where the executive offices are. That's leveled off a little bit. I think 50% of the fan base, give or take, is on the side of the Golden Knights side saying, okay, Marchessault is getting old. 5 years is too long. And then you got people like me who are saying, listen, this is not a good period for the Golden Knights right now. They lost every unrestricted free agents. Chandler Stevenson. Why am I drawing a blank? Will Carrier. Mike Amadio, Alec Martinez got a $4 million bag with Chicago. That wasn't happening in Vegas, but still, all these free agents left. Marchessault is now on that list as well. Logan Thompson asked for a trade. These are big things happening with this team right now. And now the Golden Knights are scrambling to fill a void of about 80 or 90 goals and almost 100 assists that are not with the team anymore. And then you got the PR side of it, which hasn't been good. So here comes Samsonov. Here comes Schmid. Will Aiden Hill stay healthy? Will any of these other guys pop and find a way to replace that output? There's so much happening. And can Bruce Cassidy, who doesn't have the best track record with younger players, keep all this together? There's so many questions. And I think troubled waters are ahead for this upcoming season, the 24-25 season for the Vegas Golden Knights.
Do you expect any more moves between now and the start of training camp in September?
Golden Knights got about $1.2 million to work with. That's way too much money on the credit card. The Golden Knights, I think, will do something. You could see something small, like what a Daniels Sprong. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's still out there. You could see. I mean, I don't know if the Golden Knights got the assets to make that Marner splash. I don't know. I don't wishful thinking is the right way to put that, but we'll see. Trevor Zegras, there could be a path involving Shea Theodore, like we said earlier. That would be interesting, but is Zegras that type of player to replace a Marchessault? He's flashy, he's fun, does a lot of cool things out there. Lacrosse, Michigan goals, crazy assists from behind the net. Like, he's got a lot of flair to him, but can he be on that top wing with Jack Eichel? I don't know. But if the team took a swing with Trevor Zegras, who has a lot of young, productive years in him, I'd be okay with that.
All right. Well, I know you and your co-host will have things followed every step of the way. Chris, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, so Locked On VGK, just like it sounds, YouTube, anywhere you catch your podcast. You can find me at TD Chris G, like touchdown Chris G. And I've been a fun follow lately. I've been chirping a little bit. I've been a little chirpy. So come on and muck it up with me. We'll have some fun.
All right, Chris, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, guys.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available in the free Fire TV channels app. I want to thank my guests, Ann Kimmel of Locked On Predators, Trey Matthews of Locked On Devils, and Chris Gawlik of Locked On Vegas Golden Knights for joining me today. I'm Gil Martin. I host the Monday edition of Locked On NHL, and I co-host the Friday edition along with Rachel Donner. Don't forget, everydayers, we are here Monday through Friday, bringing you the biggest stories from around the National Hockey League. So make sure you join us every day for that so you don't miss an episode. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and thanks for listening to and watching the Locked On NHL podcast.